Everybody, Lawler here, your insight source for all things Rocket League. Just as a heads up, energy for the videos or the next few videos is going to be pretty low. I'm actually pretty sick and just kind of like forcing my way through these, so bear with me. Today's video, we're going to be covering a Dignitas rebrand that was actually recently announced. Klassux has made an announcement that he is going to be returning to the Rocket League scene. And we also have the grid recap to go underway for Europe week number 3. But before we get into that, as always, if you guys enjoy the content, give it a thumbs up, as well as making sure to hit subscribe. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, just drop those down below, as well as checking out any of my social medias that can be found in the description. First up, we're going to be talking about Dignitas and their rebrand. If you guys haven't seen it, they are going back to their original logo, just with a kind of 2021 version of it. If you guys don't know, Dignitas is obviously an organization that's been around for quite a while, starting off originally in 2003. And their logo kind of looked like a bomb with like a wick. It always reminded me of kind of like Bomberman to an extent, but they're going back to that. And this seems to be an ongoing trend with a lot of organizations kind of updating and kind of going with the times. And this just looks like more like a sleek design. Their most recent iteration of their logo before this one was more of like a crest, pretty similar to like almost like a football club. And I was kind of on both sides of it when it was the full crest, and hopefully you guys are seeing images of that here. But the full crest and stuff always looked really good, but the other iterations that they used kind of reminded me just of like a fat Pikachu. It was supposed to be like an owl, but it just always looked really awkward or really low quality. So I'm actually really excited to go back. This is the Dignitas logo that I grew up with. From watching the early days of like Shushay and stuff, playing in League of Legends. Dignitas was a pretty like synonymous with the brand, with like I'm a cutie pie and stuff like that. So I am excited to see them go back to their old / updated logo now, just because it, to me, that's what Dignitas has and always has been. I don't know why they ever went away from it, but I am excited for them to go back. Next up, you do have Klassux going to be returning to the scene. He says and puts out a tweet just a day ago. Been grinding Rocket League again recently. I'm LFT, need a squad to grind with. For those that don't know, Klassux was an OG of the scene and been around for quite a while, and had been in the RLCS for quite a few seasons, known for being the passion when he stands up and yells and showing a lot of energy and doing a lot of ridiculous things. Klassux has always been on the receiving end of a lot of jokes, but all in all, a very passionate dude and a very humble dude when it comes to playing in this scene. This is a guy that, for those that don't know, kind of got associated with the old bruiser meta, where it was pretty much the original version of what Gimmick's playstyle is now, where it was very in your face, create a lot of challenges and opportunities, but took a bit of a break after a couple seasons of being away. He put a lot of focus into Valorant and became a pretty high Valorant player. Also did a lot of poker and was playing in poker tournaments. And you can see, if you look at his social media's winnings and stuff. But to come back to Rocket League, I'm kind of curious as to why the change of pace for Klassux, but either way, he does have a lot of friends and a lot of the OGs that'll probably shout out to him. So it'll be interesting to see if he ends up finding a solidified team. Maybe him and Kernovi can get on a run now that the zero issue thing ended up happening. But either way, Klassux, knowing him, if he stays motivated and continues to grind, he can find himself back towards the top. Whether it'll be a 72 PC situation like Jacob, or it is going to be more of a resurgence or not, we do not know, but we'll have to keep tabs on that. But either way, maybe Klassux will make a return for the spring split. Last but not least, we've got week 3 of the grid for Europe going down for RLCSX winter split. We ended up having the 16 teams competing in their groups of 4, and from there then we had a playoff bracket. If you want to take a look at the groups, we got group A, B, C, and D with the 16 teams and the results showing as well. Kind of interesting things I noticed right away is that every single group had a team that went 3-0 and a team that went 0-3 because of that. So the biggest surprise was probably group B for me, with Top Blokes going 0-3. That one caught me off guard, and Redemption actually 3-0 in their group. I mean, group D to me is probably a really solidified one, a really stacked one. Fadeaway going 0-3 is kind of surprising for me, but it is showing that Dignitas is trending in a good direction, and that'll carry through as we look into the playoffs. If you want to take a look at the playoff bracket, this is what the round of 16 matches look like. We've got Oxygen versus Fadeaway, Guild Singularity, BDS Top Blokes, which is a very tough first matchup, Dignitas versus Galaxy Racer, another tough first matchup, Redemption, Liquid, Endpoint, and Wolves, Team Vitality, Rix.GG, Triple Trouble, and Giants Gaming. We're going to start at the top, work our way down. The biggest one, I talked about how Oxygen, despite going 3-0 in groups, could be upset due to Fadeaway's playstyle being very counterattack heavy. Oxygen does like to outwork other teams, but at times they also play down to their competition. And in this circumstance, I think that really benefits Fadeaway with being a little bit more passive. It allows for those mistakes to really get punished, and Fadeaway ends up sweeping the series. As for Guild and Singularity, I would like to see more out of Singularity. I talk about how they can either be the best team in Europe or they can be the absolute worst. In this case, Guild, a team that is trending in a really good direction with Devo, continue to do that. I did have expectations of, no matter what happened in that Guild would be finding themselves in the semifinal. Guild to me is looking like a top 5 team solidified, and it's really exciting that Devo has found his home. Next up, we've got BDS versus Top Blokes. Top Blokes, I do think, is a top 2, top 3 team in Europe. But BDS to get swept is pretty surprising here. I mean, I look at the scoreline, and it is a very close series with 2 of those matches being a 1-goal game, but for BDS to not get a single win is actually pretty surprising, and it looks like the break did hit them a little bit harder. As for Top Blokes, glad to see them continuing to climb. Thing that I want to pay attention to, though, is Top Blokes. It looks like they have signed with an organization, even though it hasn't been announced yet. I don't know if they're waiting for the regional. That's what the rumors have been, that they will not announce what the new organization is until Regional 3 hits, so keep your eyes out for that one. As soon as I find out the information, I'll let you guys know about it. After that is Dignitas versus Galaxy Racer, another team in Galaxy Racer that I do consider a team that should be pushing into the top 6, or at least trying to solidify themselves there. But a team that I've kept my eyes on after talking with Violent Panda and over the past couple of weeks, if you guys have watched my videos, Dignitas is trending in a really good direction. The addition of apparently Jack Majorias has really worked out, where it's a constant threat on offense, while Violent Panda isn't also afraid to move up. There's been times when Violent Panda has been the second in rotation to basically tie everything together, whether it be put away a shot or just set up another pass. But passing and the formula of Dignitas remains supreme. And it is really exciting to see Dignitas start to trend back towards the top. We saw towards the tail end of Season 9 where it was Dignitas and Vitality at the top, and then they had a big drop at the beginning of RLCSX. So it is exciting to see Dignitas find that missing piece. Unfortunate for Yukio, but for the sake of Dignitas, it has been a welcome addition. So they did say it's going to take a little bit of time. Jack's got to find his comfort in this team, and it looks like they've done that. But a 3 over Galaxy Racer, and a perfect sweep at that, not allowing a single goal from Galaxy Racer, a team that is very solid on offense, is a pretty big deal. Next up, we got Team Liquid versus Redemption. Ironically enough, this is the opposite results, where Team Liquid goes 0-3 and Redemption goes 3-0 in groups. They come together, but Liquid actually ends up getting the win. Not exactly sure what happened here with Redemption, but it just didn't seem like they could get those W's. 2 OTs to start off the game, with Liquid getting one and then Redemption getting the other, and then it's closed out 3-1, 2-1 by Team Liquid. I started watching the matches right around this area on my stream. I wasn't really happy with any of the results or the play from the lower bracket, talking like Redemption Liquid, Endpoint Wolves, Vitality Ricks, Triple Trouble Giants. Like, I have a pretty high expectations for some of these teams, and they just didn't really live up to that. I don't know if that's just because of the break and they're getting back into the swing of things, but that kind of worries me, that anytime there's a extended period of time off, that you are a little bit too laxed. Maybe that's just me being strict and having these expectations set possibly a little bit too high. I do understand wanting to take a bit of an extended break, but the difficulty is, like, these matches do make quite a bit of a difference. So I am looking to see these teams really amp it up for regionals coming up this weekend. We then look at Endpoint and Wolves, and it is good to see that Endpoint still continues to separate themselves from some of these lower teams. Endpoint as well, another team that I do think has a very distinct play style, but it's still very reliant on specific players really stepping up. Relating Wave is kind of the make or break for the team, where if his defense is on, they look really, really good, because the other two will fit into place. But as their day went on, I saw less and less demos out of Vert. It looked like they were struggling to kind of find those opportunities. So a little bit of concern for Endpoint if they end up going against some tougher competition in the future. Vitality over Ricks, basically talked about how this one Vitality shouldn't even worry about. It's a 3-1 victory. Not a whole lot to really talk about here. Ricks just got outplayed pretty heavily. I will say, though, the exciting thing about this series, though, is there was 2 OTs and a lot of time. I think they were only like 14 or like 17 seconds off the all-time record for overtime in a series. The first game was a 6-minute OT that which Ricks won, and then in game 4 for Vitality to close it out was a 9-minute overtime. So a whole lot of overtime being played here. Just shy of 15 minutes total. We then go down the lower match, Triple Trouble versus Giants Gaming. Giants Gaming I do consider a top 4 team and should have no problems with this one. They do win 3-1 over Triple Trouble and looked like the better team for sure. Despite this, though, almost every game was a 1-goal differential. The only one that wasn't was game 3, which was 4-1 in favor of Giants. Giants, to me, was the better looking team in this half until they moved on to the quarterfinals. We then jump into the quarterfinals, and Fadeaway put up a pretty dang good fight here against Guild and almost got reverse swept. Actually, was Guild. It was 3-1 and then 2-1 against Fadeaway in the first 2 games until it was 1-0 and 3-0 in favor of Fadeaway, where they shut out Guild. Shutting out Guild, I think, with this new playstyle with Devo, where Devo is being very disruptive on offense, is not easy to do, especially when you've got the 2 backing him and the high-flying aerials and all the kind of crazy stuff that they can do. So it was exciting to see that Fadeaway was able to put up a fight and actually shut a team out. Usually a team that's really defensive doesn't really have that option. So congrats to them. Fadeaway did start to look very one-dimensional in the middle of this series with the way that their offense worked. But at the end, a 1-0 goal, all you need is 1. They were able to hold on to it. So that was pretty impressive. Congrats to them there. They move on to the semifinals. We then jump down to the quarterfinals where it's Top Looks versus Dignitas. This is Dignitas's other really big match. Was trying to see if they can get consistent wins over top tier teams, and a team like Top Looks that has some of the more creative offense, they actually end up beating in 5. This one could have went either way and was probably one of my favorite matches actually of the entire day between the two OTs. Nothing too crazy in length. They were ended pretty quickly, I would say, but ultimately the difference here is Dignitas just started to hit a heater. This match basically told me that Dignitas was going to win the whole thing from the looks of it, because every other team kind of looked flat. So congrats to Dignitas on this one. They are, like I said, trending in a really good direction. The results are showing for it, and it's not just a 1-week thing. They're doing this over the account of multiple days against other top tier opponents. Like Dignitas is trying to find themselves back in the top 5, top 3 even. And quite honestly, if they do another result in regionals, it's kind of hard to argue. We then go to Endpoint versus Liquid. I don't want to watch this series. It just wasn't exciting. Team Liquid still continues to struggle. Endpoint shouldn't have to worry about a team like this. But some major concerns for Team Liquid. At this point, I think they should be looking into the future. What can they do long term? Forget about trade windows. Forget about everything else. Liquid needs to go out and find some really solid players that work well together. They don't need to be afraid of losing out on points, because there is no way they can make world championships at this point, unless they have some like miraculous run where they win Regional 3 and somehow get into the majors. But I just don't see it happening. Like Liquid to me needs to be thinking about the future at this point, which is really sad, because I do like the players on the team quite a bit, but something just is not working. I haven't seen Fruity's name called about a positive thing in a very long time. He's just kind of existing, which is unfortunate, because I think Fruity's still a really good player. There's something about their playstyle that just does not work. I don't know if it's because of the players, the coach, whatever it is. I haven't done a deep dive on it, because quite honestly, I don't like watching their gameplay because it is pretty stale. But Team Liquid, I think, needs to focus on the future. I think their first priority and their major priority right now needs to be, how do we in the future, whether it be the spring split or for RLCS 11, how do we make sure that we are going to be a top tier team? Because right now, building upon what they have doesn't seem to be working, and it's a harsh reality. But Liquid has not looked good this season. Up next, Vitality versus Giants. I thought Giants originally was going to win this one. It was a pretty close series, but Vitality, like fashion, they find ways to win usually in these close matchups. I think Vitality, whenever they're playing tough competition, you see a better version of them. But this one was pretty back and forth, as expected. Both these teams, I think, are top 4, top 3 even. So going to be competitive either way. Vitality did come out with a better start, but Giants is a team, once they warm up, I feel like they can take just about anybody. But it does come down to the wire, and I think this is kind of the coin toss of what the match really showcases in Game 5. It is a 2.5-minute overtime, 5-4. Very high-scoring game, a little bit troublesome on the defense. Both these teams in their victories are putting up a minimum of 3 goals. That is a lot in Rocket League, especially against high-level teams. Something about the defense a little bit troublesome here in Europe for this week. We then get to the first semifinal, which is Guild versus Dignitas, and not much to talk about here other than Dignitas absolutely smacked them. Again, I talked about the Top Loc series versus Dignitas, and it looked like Dignitas was going to win the whole thing. We have very rarely seen what is referred to as a perfect sweep, let alone in a best of 7. A perfect sweep basically is the iteration of not only do you 4-0 or 3-0 the team if it's a best of 5, but you also shut them out. You do not allow in a single goal. Dignitas now has 2 on the day. They stop Guild, a team with a lot of offense, and they don't allow them to score the entire time. It is 2-0, 1-0, 1-0, and 4-0. And that's not to say that Guild didn't put up a pretty good fight. I mean, they got pretty close in some of these series. I mean, a 1-0 game You're talking one bad mistake and it goes the other way. But I think that's a testament to what Dignitas is doing. Just relentless pressure and the ability to stay creative with their area of attack. I think Jories and apparently Jack are working really well together now. And it's exciting. Dignitas, keep your eyes open. They look very, very dangerous. Still, 2 perfect sweeps in one day and the very rare occurrence of them happening in the first place. I think we've only seen like 5 or 7 or something like that total. I forget the exact stat. Maybe one of you guys will know in the comments down below, but yeah, the circumstance of a perfect sweep happening on a regular basis is not a thing that we normally get. So for Dignitas to pull 2 in the same day, like, you should know this is a really good team. We then go up against Endpoint and Vitality in the other semifinal, and this one's kind of surprising to me. Endpoint didn't look all that great. Vitality didn't either. This one just seems to be who showed up the best in this specific match. Quite honestly, I think Vitality should never lose this series, but they do end up losing in 6. It is 4-2 in favor of Endpoint, with 2 overtimes over the course. The first one does go in Vitality's favor, but then after that, they pretty much struggled to find additional goals. It showed that Vitality, the same flaws that they showed against Giants, where like if the other team scores more than 2-3 goals, they're gonna have a hard time staying with it. So in this case, Endpoint put up a ton of shots and a lot of goals to boot with that. I think the biggest thing here for Endpoint to commend them on was their efficiency, the ability to find the net when they needed to. And Vitality, when their defense is lacking, got punished for it. So if you go back and watch the series, you're going to see a lot of mistakes and a lot of flaws from both sides. Endpoint just tends to capitalize on it a little bit better. This was not a good look from Vitality, and again, it is just the grid. A lot of these teams don't weight as heavily as I think they should, but all in all, still a top 4 performance. It's a big deal, I think, for Endpoint to make it all the way to the grand finals. First time they've done it in a long time, so exciting things from them. But what awaits them in the finals is a very strong looking Dignitas. As we look at the final match of the day, I mean, Dignitas, it starts off with an 8-2 victory. And if you're watching on Endpoint's behalf, like, you're like, oh shoot, this is not going to be good. And that continued to trend. Dignitas with another 4-0 clean sweep. The only matches they dropped were against Top Lokes, a team that I considered second best in the entire region. So with that said, Dignitas looked absolutely lethal all day today, pretty much having their way with every other team. And this is where now the mentality starts to transition. It is a 4-0 sweep in favor of Dignitas. They lose 2 matches out of all their matches in the day, and they beat, along their run, Galaxy Racer, top 6 team, Top Lokes, top 2 team, Guild, top 6 team, and Endpoint, a top 8 team, I guess you can consider them. That is a pretty solid matchup. And then you also look at their in groups, and the only team they lose to in groups is Redemption, a team that was having the hot hand. So if they beat in their run Fadeaway, Giants, Galaxy Racer, Top Lokes, Guild, and Endpoint, that is a pretty stacked lineup of competition to show that they are, without a doubt, a team that deserves praise. So congratulations to Dignitas. They do definitely deserve the praise that I think they have been working very hard to accomplish with the new addition. It looks like the apparently Jack answer is definitely here. It is exciting to see him and Joria's work together. It's probably one of my favorite things to watch right now in European RLCS, is just watching how this team is going to continue to develop with a well-decorated veteran in Violent Pandas. So some exciting stuff all around from Dignitas. I just want to see them do it in regionals now. If they do it in regionals, that's when you start to really move them up in the power rankings. Right now, I have them as a top 6, I would say, just because winning the grid is no joke, even if people do not take it as seriously. But the results do speak for themselves. I think Dignitas, again, a team that a lot of people are going to have to be worrying about. I would love to see Dignitas get back to their former glory and make it into a top 3, a top 4 spot. But easier said than done. It's as competitive as it ever has been in Europe. That is going to wrap it up for this video before I pass out from talking. So if you guys have made it this far, I do greatly appreciate it. I'll try to keep putting out daily content for y'all. It's just with being sick, I can only do so much. So trying to get on the fast track to recovery. If you guys do have any questions, comments, concerns, make sure you drop those down below. And if you have made it this far, I do greatly appreciate it. But that is going to wrap it up for me today, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.